This week's topic is about something that was suggested to me by a knitter who contacted me who was confused when she was knitting her first sweater, a cardigan, and it said for the right front, work as for the left front, reversing all shapings. And for a few minutes I thought, well, what's the problem here? And then I went back to when I worked my first sweater, and the exact same thing bothered me. One thing I didn't do, I'll get to that in a minute, but the thing that bothered me is that if you're working on a sweater, and this is the left front, now it's on the right side right here because when it's worn it will be the left front. Here's the armhole. It's going to go for the left arm. And in order to create the armhole, you generally are instructed to bind off stitches. Now when you bind off stitches, you bind them off at the edge, you have your working yarn, and you go through to the end. Now that causes a problem when you come to the right side and you're trying to do exactly the same thing, the right front, because you're binding off at the beginning of a row, and that's going to be on the wrong side of the work. So what that means in practicality is that on the right front, when you go to bind off, you are going to have one row less or one row more than the left front. And in this case, as you can see, I've got one row left. I think I made this bind off as I was working row 6, wrong side row, and on this side on row 7. That really bothered me when I did my first project. I tried several solutions, and of course you can bind off without using your working yarn, but without going to too much trouble, this is the way that it's normally done. You bind off, you bind off. Now this may look like, in this small sample, the end of the universe, but when you get the garment knit as a whole, you certainly don't notice it. And when you do the back is going to look like this. And so you might have to do a little fudging when you seam the top side when you get to the top of the armhole opening, but it is not the end of the world. Now you see that we have the same thing on the neckline. You're either going to have one row less or one row more. And again, this is something that is negligible in a finished garment. By the time you seam it, pick up the neck bands or sew in the sleeves or pick up a band, whatever, it's not going to be noticeable because I have bazillions of sweaters where this is the case. Now the other thing that you need to be aware of when you're reversing all shapings, and this is the thing that I didn't know when I knit my first sweater, is that when you work different sides of a garment, so this is the left front, this is the right front, I'm going to want to mirror my decreases. And on this side, I have worked SSKs, which means on this side, I'm going to work knit two togethers. So when I reverse all shapings, if on the left front I have worked SSKs, I need to work knit two togethers here. Now on the neckline, I have done the reverse. Since I want my slant to go in this direction, I have knit twos together. So on this part of the neck, I would have SSKs. Now the one thing that you can do, despite the shaping, is that you can make sure that you have the exact same number of rows. Yes, the neck is going to be a little higher on this side, but if I were to count all of these rows, I have exactly the same number of rows in each piece. And if you do sweaters where you don't have shaping for the armholes, you may not even notice that this was a problem. But anyway, that's what's meant when it says reverse all shapings. That means on one side you're going to be making bind-offs on the right side of the row, and on the other side you're going to be working them on the wrong side. This is worked on the right side, this is worked on the wrong side. And you're going to be mirroring your decreases. SSKs, knit two together, SSKs.